With the modern landscape of horror games seeing hyper-detailed visuals, dark, eerie landscapes and graphical violence being at the forefront of our screens, it showcases the realism of these depictions to make them ultra-believable. However, even with all of the high levels of detail we are being exposed to in the modern era of gaming, people still reflect and yearn for a return to a time of blocky, low polygonal visuals that were able to create a true sense of tension and atmosphere that many modern games are simply unable to replicate. Early horror games like Alone in the Dark, Dr. Hauser, and Resident Evil set the standard for what is now known as the survival horror genre, that has seen many sequels and spin-offs over the years, gradually moving away from their iconic roots of slow, clunky gameplay and cheesy voice acting to focus on more modern approaches. While mainstream game development studios have little to no interest or intention of revisiting this long-forgotten style, there are many dedicated fans and smaller indie game developers that continue to create ideas based on these older concepts to share new experiences with players that offer more classic and nostalgic elements that remind them of truly one of the greatest eras of video games. From atmospheric settings to heart-pounding encounters, these games revive the essence of classic horror while introducing innovative gameplay mechanics. Join us on a journey through this unique realm of modern retro horror as we explore some of the best modern survival horror games that offer the same kind of enduring influence, intense horror and atmospheric gameplay that pay homage to the iconic Resident Evil series to inspire a new era of spine-chilling experiences. Get ready to face your fears all over again as we delve into the world of these modern Resident Evil clones. The Glass Staircase is a survival horror game developed by Puppet Combo that has been inspired by classic Resident Evil games, with the plot being set in an isolated mansion, where players take on the role of a number of young characters who are being held against their will, to later discover most of the young children are going missing. Each character plays an important role in the story while uncovering its dark secrets, to later discover that they are being used in sinister experiments and rituals to create monsters. Players must navigate through the mansion, completing tasks such as daily chores and finding items, all while searching for a way to escape the nightmare that will later lead to a final encounter, fighting off against the mansion's hideous inhabitants. The game's graphics are designed to look like they are from an early PlayStation game, with low poly character models and fixed camera angles that add to the sense of tension and unease as players explore the dark and foreboding environment. This style adds to the game's overall sense of nostalgia and gives it a unique look and feel. The game's sound design also contributes to its atmosphere of horror and dread, providing a mix of haunting and eerie tracks that add to the feeling of unease as players explore the mansion and its hidden rooms, with creaking floorboards and distant whispers adding to the game's overall sense of immersion. Overall, The Glass Staircase is a unique and challenging survival horror game that successfully captures the essence of classic horror games from the past. Vaccine is a game that takes place in a remote mansion that has a dark secret. Players must search for a vaccine to cure a deadly virus that has infected your partner, all while avoiding the monsters that roam the hallways and corridors of the mansion. Vaccine was developed by Rainy Night Creations that is set in a procedurally generated environment that changes with each playthrough, providing a new and challenging experience every time. The gameplay of Vaccine is reminiscent of classic survival horror games like Resident Evil and Silent Hill, where players must explore the mansion to find the vaccine, all while avoiding or fighting off zombies and other infected creatures that roam the halls. The game is played from a fixed camera perspective, adding to the sense of claustrophobia and tension as players navigate the dark and foreboding environment. The updated release of Vaccine Rebirth offers players new, improved gameplay elements with new areas to explore and enemies to encounter, while evolving the game's story plot that now allows you to experience the tower from different perspectives, from fixed cameras to a more intensive first-person mode, to allow you to get up close and personal with each enemy encounter. One unique feature of Vaccine is the game's permadeath mechanic. If a player dies throughout their playthrough, they must start the game over from the beginning, with the mansion's layout and items randomised once again. This adds an extra layer of challenge to the game and forces players to be more cautious and strategic in their actions. The game's graphics and sound design also contribute to its atmospheric nature of horror and dread. The mansion is designed in an eerie gothic style, complete with crumbling walls, dingy hallways and flickering candles that illuminate the darkness. The sound effects and music are also eerie and unsettling, adding to the feeling of unease as players explore the environment. Vaccine and its remake offer a challenging and immersive survival horror experience that successfully captures the essence of classic horror games from the past. Its procedurally generated environments offer more replay value, making it a unique and engaging experience for horror fans. Escape the Awoki remake is a survival horror game that takes place in a haunted house. Players must use their wits and their reflexes to escape from the clutches of a relentless and terrifying monster. The game is a remake of the original Escape the Awoki game, with graphics and gameplay reminiscent of classic survival horror games of the 90s. In the game, players take on the role of a character who wakes up in a strange and creepy building filled with traps and puzzles. The building is haunted by the Awoki, a terrifying demonic creature that stalks the player throughout the game. Armed with only a flashlight, players must navigate through the building, solving puzzles and avoiding traps and obstacles, all while being pursued by the Awoki. You must hide from its line of sight to avoid detection by using cupboards, hiding under tables, or anything that you can use to remain hidden until the path is clear, but it won't be for long. The game's controls are its main issue, with the use of turning and moving the character with the analog sticks while trying to replicate the limitations of tank controls, which can make it feel like a frustrating clunky mess, making it easy for the Awoki to constantly catch you as you fight with moving around the environment. You will know when you get caught, as you will be subjected to an upfront presence of this hideous entity, which will result in game over. The game's fixed camera angles add to the sense of tension and unease, as players must constantly be aware of their surroundings and the potential danger lurking around every corner. The game's graphics are intentionally designed to look like those of older games, taking inspiration from the PlayStation and Sega Saturn era of horror games. The retro style adds to the game's overall sense of nostalgia and gives it a unique look and feel. The game's sound design provides an eerie and unsettling feeling of horror and dread, with distant footsteps and screams, knowing the Awoki is close by, adding to the game's overall sense of immersion. Escape the Awoki remake is a challenging and engaging survival horror game that successfully captures the essence of classic horror games from the past. Its retro graphics and sound design make it a memorable and immersive experience for horror fans, and its challenging gameplay and sense of dread make it a must play for those who enjoy the survival horror genre.
What the hell was that?
The Lunar Effect is a survival horror game set in a remote house in the woods, where players take on the role of a lone character, trapped inside, who must survive against a series of demonic entities that roam the hallways, stalking you at every turn. In the game, players must explore the rooms, finding supplies and items of interest to survive. The house is filled with traps and puzzles, and players must use their wits and skills to overcome these obstacles and avoid the demonic creatures that stalk them. The game's graphics and use of low poly style visuals provide rich, detailed environments that add to the game's overall sense of immersion. The abandoned house setting also adds to the game's atmosphere of isolation and dread, as players must navigate through the dark hallways with limited resources and the constant threat of danger. There is no combat in the game, which is challenging and requires strategic thinking and skill to be successful. The game's sound design also contributes to its atmospheric horror and dread, providing a mix of ambient and intense tracks that add to the feeling of unease as players explore the old house. The Lunar Effect manages to provide a detailed retrospective of classic survival horror. It successfully captures the essence of the genre with its unique setting and puzzle system, making it a memorable and immersive experience for horror fans wanting to feel an overall sense of dread and isolation. The Mute House is a survival horror game that draws inspiration from classic horror titles, combining exploration, management, puzzles, and action. The game follows the story of a county policewoman, Emily, who decides to investigate the strange disappearances that have been happening in the town after her sister goes missing, leading her to an abandoned mansion. The Mute House features an old-school survival horror style of gameplay with fixed camera angles that focus on atmosphere and exploration. The game also includes classic inventory management mechanics, where Emily has a limited inventory that players must organise and manage resources effectively to survive. Players will explore the mysterious mansion and its intriguing rooms and places, uncovering the secrets and history of the manor and uncover clues about Emily's sister's disappearance. The game features a haunting atmosphere that adds to the sense of dread and horror, with creatures lurking around every corner. Players must use their wits to solve puzzles and find clues to progress through the game, while fighting off zombie-like creatures using a variety of different weapons. This adds an element of strategy to the game, as players must balance their desire to explore with the need to conserve resources. The Mute House is an immersive survival horror game that successfully captures the essence of classic horror titles. Its combination of exploration, management, puzzles and action, along with its haunting atmosphere, make it a memorable and engaging experience for horror fans. The game's graphics and sound design are well crafted, with a haunting atmosphere that adds to the game's overall sense of dread and terror. The mansion itself is full of dark and creepy rooms, hidden passageways, and undead entities that create a sense of tension as you explore the depths of the unknown, which will only heighten the tension and fear as you play. The Mute House is still currently in active development that provides an immersive vibe that successfully captures the essence of classic titles that will make it a memorable experience for fans of horror games. Tormented Souls is a classic horror-inspired game that takes place in an abandoned mansion that sees you take on the role of a young woman being trapped inside that must uncover the secrets that lie within by solving puzzles, fighting off supernatural entities to to uncover the truth behind the mansion's dark history. The game features classic survival horror gameplay mechanics, such as limited resources, puzzle solving and intense combat, with the use of makeshift weapons and items to eliminate enemies so that you can survive. All of these elements combined, along with searching for clues and items, will also help you to progress the story as you play. But you must be mindful, as the mansion is full of dangers, including many different supernatural creatures that will attack players on sight, making exploration a tense and nerve-wracking experience. The game displays modern graphics and visuals, with highly detailed and atmospheric environments that add to the game's sense of dread and isolation. Each environment is full of creepy and unsettling objects, including dolls, mannequins, and other items that add to the game's overall atmosphere and horror. The game also implements the classic fixed camera perspective seen in earlier horror titles of the past, as this provides a sense of tension, as players never know what lurks around the next corner. The game's use of realistic sound effects and combat system provides many challenges that require strategic thinking in order to be mindful of your surroundings in order to be successful. The events of the game would later lead on to a future entry in the series with Tormented Souls 2 that continues on from the events of the first game, with the main character, Caroline Walker, desperately trying to save her cursed sister from a mysterious demonic affliction that will see her navigate and explore even more decrepit locations, from ruined monasteries and other nightmarish locations. Overall, the Tormented Souls series is a well-crafted and immersive survival horror franchise that successfully captures the essence of the genre. Its classic gameplay mechanics, atmospheric graphics and haunting soundtracks make it a memorable and engaging experience for horror fans, while its challenging combat system ensures a satisfying and intense gameplay experience. BioCrisis is a short, classic survival horror experience with PS1 style pre-rendered graphics and tank controls, being created as part of a game jam to celebrate the 25th anniversary of the Resident Evil franchise. The game epitomizes the classic gameplay elements seen in early horror titles that mix combat with puzzle solving and exploration while trying to survive an onslaught of zombies and other hideous monstrosities, searching for limited supplies, ammo, weapons and resources through the lens of a fixed camera perspective and tank controls. The plot follows the events of a viral outbreak in a small town, revolving around a young woman waking up from a crash in an underground car park with no memory of what has happened. Dealing with temporary memory loss, the player attempts to understand what is happening while exploring stunningly crafted pre-rendered environments, finding items of interest to aid in progression and survival. While this is a short experience, BioCrisis truly manages to fully depict the true essence of classic horror in all its glory. With no further updates since its original development, the game shows true promise of what could have been, so hopefully more updates will follow to give fans a glimpse of modern horror in the current generation. Originally created as a short experimental prototype for the haunted PS1 Summer of Shivers game jam, Endless Blue garnered much attention from horror fans to be further explored, as it presents one of the closest depictions of classic horror in modern gaming. The plot follows the role of an agent named Rena, sent into a secret deep-sea underwater laboratory facility to gather information and data from lost communication from the research teams, only to discover that a failed experiment has caused a biohazardous outbreak that is mutating and transforming people within the facility into grotesque monstrosities. Played from a classic horror game perspective, you must navigate Rena to explore the location while looking for clues, items of interest and weapons and resources to survive and discover the reasons behind these disastrous events. The game is still currently being further developed with the aim of becoming a complete title with its own intricate story and plotline that will appeal to horror fans. Endless Blue is a faithful love letter that aims to fully recreate the suspense and terror-filled gameplay of classic survival horror titles that is presented with a unique sci-fi aesthetic vibe. You can stay updated with the game's development over on itch.io, which will provide more insights into the future of this modern horror classic. Echoes of the Living is a survival horror game set in a dark and atmospheric world, where players must fight to survive the occurrence of an unknown viral outbreak in a small local town, with the aim of escaping and uncovering the truth behind a series of mysterious events and what has been causing people to transform into hideous creatures and monsters by navigating the narrow hallways, alleyways and buildings overrun by zombies and undead monsters, while scavenging for supplies and working together to survive. In the game, players must explore the town and its surroundings, searching for clues and solving puzzles to uncover the dark secrets that have led to the town's downfall. The game's graphics are well crafted, with detailed and realistic environments that add to the game's overall sense of immersion. The eerie and foreboding atmosphere of the game is enhanced by the haunting soundtrack, which features a mix of ambient and intense tracks that add to the feeling of unease as players explore each environment within the town. The game's narrative is told through a series of documents, recordings and other items that players must collect and piece together to unravel the mystery behind the town's demise. The game's puzzles are also well designed, requiring players to use their wits and problem solving skills to progress even further, to unlock items of interest, weapons, and to proceed to areas to progress through the story. The combat system is reflective of classic survival horror games, allowing players to use a variety of weapons and tools to defend themselves against hidden threats that lurk in the shadows, which also require strategic thinking and skill to be successful. That adds an extra layer of tension to the overall game experience. The game is still in current active development, but is a highly anticipated title that will provide a haunting and immersive survival horror experience that successfully blends elements of exploration, puzzle solving, combat, and just an overall sense of true classic horror. Its emphasis on storytelling, detailed graphics and sound design make it a memorable and engaging experience for horror fans, and its well-crafted gameplay ensures a challenging and satisfying experience. Echoes of the Living's gameplay is heavily inspired mostly by the events of Resident Evil 2 and 3, with its unique environmental design, and is one of the most authentic modern experiences reflective of classic horror currently available. The Mansion of Evil is a fan-made survival horror game set in a mysterious mansion where players take on the role of a number of different characters with the aim of discovering the many treasures that are known to be within after being invited to the mansion after winning a competition. As you explore the mansion, you will discover that it is full of supernatural and deadly creatures that you must defeat in order to survive. The game takes many elements from classic Resident Evil games with detailed environments that add to the game's overall atmosphere and sense of horror. The mansion is also full of dark, creepy rooms and hidden passages where you must search for strange objects and items of interest that helps to create a sense of dread and tension as you play. As you explore further into the mansion and navigate its dark corridors, you will uncover many hidden clues that will be useful to progress, but you must also be mindful of the many creatures that lurk within, where you must be strategic with your engagement and weapon choices in order to conserve ammo. And one of the elements that makes the game more difficult in order to achieve this is that the game currently only allows for the use of a keyboard and mouse, which is the only main way to move and interact with the character and the environment. That will present a more challenging experience overall. If a character dies throughout play, you will need to continue the game with the next character until you manage to escape, but if all of them die, it will be game over. The Mansion of Evil is a short, fun and immersive survival horror game that successfully captures the essence of the genre and doesn't take itself too seriously, but will appeal to fans of classic horror. Its use of mechanics, challenging combat system and creepy atmosphere make it a memorable and engaging experience for horror fans, while its puzzle-solving gameplay, mechanics and branching narrative ensure a satisfying and thought-provoking gameplay experience. The Hotel is a survival horror game set in an isolated hotel where players take on the role of Alex and Judy while on vacation, being lured and trapped in a horrific setting surrounded by deadly creatures that they must defeat to survive. The game's graphics present detailed environments that add to the game's overall sense of atmospheric horror that presents many dark, creepy rooms and hidden passages which must be explored to find many strange objects and items of interest in order to find a way out and survive. This balance in gameplay adds an extra layer of tension to the game, as players must learn to balance their desire to explore the hotel with the need to maintain resources to survive and escape. Players must also use a variety of weapons and tools that they will find along their journey to defend themselves against the game's hideous threats, while also solving puzzles that they will need to unlock many clues to find out what happened to the hotel if they are ever going to find a way to escape. The game does present many unique ideas, but at the same time does present many flaws with regards to some control features, but still manages to capture the essence of the horror genre with its creepy atmosphere, dark and gloomy locations that will definitely provide much tension for horror fans as you play.
Oh. Seems to be dead. You're not human. What the hell are you?
Donafio follows the journey of a young man trapped in an old mansion where he grew up, trying to uncover the memories and secrets of his past. Players must uncover notes, solve puzzles, and defeat zombies and other monstrosities that lurk within to solve pieces of the past so that you can escape. The game presents a very distinct vibe similar to classic Resident Evil games, but with modern visuals and aesthetics, presenting a dark, chilling atmosphere that will unnerve the player using fixed camera perspectives. While Donafio features many interesting qualities, its combat interaction and movement systems lack refinement, with many glitches that can dilute the experience when compared to many other games of its type in the horror genre. But aside from those limitations, the game still manages to capture the atmospheric tension of older classic titles from previous generations. So if you can put those elements aside, it is a game that you might want to try out, just for that experience alone. Waking up in a mansion in the middle of the forest with no memory, Trauma, Broken Paradise is a scary psychological thriller based on the classic survival horror games of old, following the journey of a woman named Sophia, desperately trying to escape while fleeing from spirits and demonic forces that haunt you at every turn, with many plot twists to experience as you progress. The game uses modern 3D visuals with dark atmospheric lighting effects, while presenting a gameplay style similar to classic horror titles from the PS1 era, with fixed camera angles and tank controls, but will transition to a first-person mode for combat. You will need to explore, find keys and items to unlock rooms, while fending off spirits with the use of an old camera. The camera will also play an important role as it can allow you to discover hidden secrets that you cannot see in person. The game has many distinctive features, but doesn't come without its fair share of game failing glitches and flaws that can hinder the experience at times. Even modern games do tend to have these traits, but they do manage to capture the essence of older games quite well. The game, along with a demo, can be found on Steam, with the developer providing updates to improve the experience while also working on a new entry in the series that will act as a prequel set many years before Trauma, Broken Paradise. Dem and Us is a survival horror game that takes place in a small town overrun by a deadly virus that turns its inhabitants into bloodthirsty monsters. Players must use their weapons and their wits to survive as they explore the town and uncover its secrets. In the game, players take on the role of two different character types, a police officer and a prisoner known as Alyssa, who is looking for her daughter and ends up in the location as a result of a crash involving the prisoner transport bus she was on, leaving her with an opportunity to escape, only to be met with even more terrifying dangers as she takes refuge in an isolated mansion. Both characters soon find out that the mansion and local areas are overrun with monsters as they navigate through the infected town. They desperately search for a way to escape while uncovering Alicia's past and the events that led to her daughter's disappearance. The game's graphics provide an unnerving feeling throughout the dark and detailed environments that add to the game's overall sense of immersion, of intense atmosphere and isolation, as players must navigate through each environment with limited resources and the constant threat of danger. The game's atmospheric elements also add an extra layer of challenge and enjoyment for those that want to experience the game's story through multiple perspectives, from classic fixed cameras to over-the-shoulder and first-person modes, allowing players to switch between them at any point, but also being able to switch between characters at different intervals, each with their own unique abilities and traits, in which they must use to progress through the game's story, while also completing many of its challenging puzzles. The game's great use of eerie sound effects are also well crafted, that play out sounds of the infected monsters' movements and attacks that only heighten the overall sense of immersion and tension. Overall, Dem and Us is a challenging and engaging survival horror game that successfully captures the essence of the genre. Its retro setting makes it a memorable and immersive experience for horror fans, with its detailed graphics and sound design that greatly increases the overall sense of dread and isolation. Risu is a short indie horror experience following a young girl trapped in a school late at night who must explore and take note of environmental features while solving puzzles to escape. The game presents a chilling atmospheric vibe that manages to affect you psychologically while unnerving you as you play. This version of the game has been around in the gaming space for quite a while, with no known updates of future developments or possible release date. However, you can download a playable version of the game on Steam. Night of the Inquisitor follows the role of a young woman being subjected to a realm of terror and danger as a result of a curse. You will meet different characters that reveal elements of the story that lead you to find peace for the spirits of those murdered by the Inquisitor so that they can ascend beyond their torment. You will need to explore, solve puzzles and find items that hold significant importance to free spirits, but be mindful of your surroundings as the Inquisitor is in constant pursuit to make you his next victim. You will need to evade his attacks with the use of holy water or running away to hide from his relentless pursuit. The game makes use of low poly visuals that look, play and reflect games seen during the PS1 era, while also adding a VHS aesthetic that will bring you back to old movies of the 1980s, with scan lines being made visible from being watched on old video cassette tapes. These elements help to present a gloomy and haunting experience, filled with a chilling and unnerving feeling that will affect you as you play, which manages to capture the essence of classic survival horror games and movies. Lonely Valley Case is a short indie horror experience following the role of a private investigator being sent to an old house situated in an isolated location deep within a forest region to uncover the reasons behind strange events and occurrences coming from within the house itself. As you explore the lower levels of the building, delving deeper into the basement, you'll soon discover many things you were never meant to see, but you get the unnerving feeling that you're being watched and that something even more terrifying lies in wait. The game utilises dark, eerie VHS and low poly visuals seen in many modern indie horror games that present many psychological elements to produce a dark, gloomy atmosphere that constantly leaves you with the feeling that something is wrong. As you explore further into the depths of the basement, you will find hidden rooms, items and notes that will describe the dreadful events as the story unfolds. The game does an excellent job with these elements, and while it is a short experience, it will be interesting to see if any further development will be made, as it has so much potential that will fit in perfectly with the many modern, classic-inspired horror titles we now see today. Twin Peaks Into the Night is a short gaming experience and fan adaptation inspired by the classic horror games of the 1990s and follows the story of the classic movie of the same name, with FBI agent Dale Cooper as he tries to investigate and uncover the mysterious events of a series of murders involving young women within the town and surrounding areas. The game captures the essence of the movie, along with the atmospheric nature of classic horror titles, utilising tank controls and fixed camera angles, all presented in beautifully crafted, pre-rendered environments, reflecting those seen in the movie itself. This is an interesting approach to the tried and tested methods of classic survival horror that offers a unique twist, paying homage to a bygone era. The game manages to do an excellent job at combining both elements of classic horror and movies into a unique experience, and it will be interesting to see if any further development will be made on this project, as there is a lot of potential on display with great use of visuals, gameplay controls and mechanics that manage to stand out from the crowd of other fan-made games out there. Psycho Dive is an ambitious attempt at creating an authentic, classic survival horror experience, seeing you play the role of Lennox, a powerful psychic with the ability to delve deep into people's subconscious minds, to help them uncover and overcome repressed memories, trauma and pain. You dive into the mind of 4 different characters, each with their own issues, to determine what can be done to overcome the darkness of their minds. But what you will find as you traverse the inner depths of the human psyche will force you to witness events that will change your perception as to the depths of depravity the mind will take you, to project sinister acts of horror. The game is currently in development by Ink Ribbon Studios, who, if you are not familiar with, also runs a popular YouTube channel dedicated to exploring classic survival horror video games from Resident Evil and Silent Hill. A link to access a playable demo version of the game can be found in the description below. Beetle Bum is an insect-themed parody of classic survival horror games, with Resident Evil seeing you play as a character, waking up in an unknown location, in an unfamiliar body, an overgrown insect. Your goal is to escape while exploring classic pre-rendered style environments, looking for keys, weapons and items of interest to survive and find the exit. Players familiar with tank controls will enjoy this short fan-made experience that presents many interesting ideas of old, new and obscure that will appeal to fans of classic horror games of the PlayStation and Sega Saturn era. Beetle Bum is a short experience that provides elements of true classic horror, but with an interesting twist. Set in a post-apocalyptic South Korea following a devastating meteor impact that has left the country in ruins and turned every living being and organism into a terrifying monstrosity, Ground Zero sees you taking on the role of an elite Korean operative and her partner, who are sent to investigate and unravel the mystery and cause of the devastation that they are about to witness. The game follows the trend of classic survival horror, with dark, eerie environments situated within beautifully crafted pre-rendered backgrounds that also utilise the fixed camera perspective style style of iconic titles from the 32-bit console generation. Players must gather data from defeated enemies, either from weapons or melee combat, which they must use in exchange for more powerful weapons and upgrades, which they will need to fend off against tougher enemies as they progress throughout the story. As of this video, the game is currently in active development, with a lot of hype building up from fans looking forward to a new traditional survival horror experience. More information can be found on the game's Steam page, which will provide updates on a possible demo or release date, hopefully in the near future. Resident Evil Mansion is a short 5 to 10 minute horror experience developed by fans of the original PS1 game that takes place in the dining room of the Spencer Mansion, that displays many iconic references to the game while adding some interesting ideas, taking on the role of a young man waking up inside the room with no idea of where he is or how he got there. To get out of the room, you will need to investigate all the items and visual elements inside that provide clues to help you find pieces of a key, of which you must correctly assemble to unlock the door and escape. The puzzle is tricky to understand, although you will find hints of how to piece everything together. A lot of trial and error will be required to build the key and escape. It is a very short experience, but it uniquely captures the essence of what made the original Resident Evil so special all those years ago, and will be a real treat for fans looking to revisit the mansion once more. Alyssa follows the story of a young female officer who is searching for a wanted criminal in a small country village town when she is ambushed by monsters. She is kidnapped and later wakes up in a mysterious mansion with no memory of how she got there. As she explores the large house, she must fight off hordes of dolls, monsters and other dangerous creatures, while uncovering the truth about why she has been taken there and must find a way to escape. The game's graphics are well crafted with detailed and atmospheric environments that add to the game's sense of dread, unsettling objects and isolation, providing an overall atmosphere of horror that significantly reflects early Resident Evil games. The use of sound design adds an extra layer of tension and horror to the game, as players can hear the creatures moving around them, making it difficult to pinpoint their exact location. The game's combat system is also challenging, which requires strategic thinking and skill to be successful, that will force players to use a variety of weapons and tools to defend themselves against the game's enemies. The addition of puzzle-solving gameplay mechanics leave players having to solve very intricate puzzles to progress throughout the game's story. These puzzles can range in difficulty, which will also add an extra layer of challenge to the experience. Currently, Alyssa stands as one of the most authentic titles that reflect the classic Resident Evil experience, which is a well-crafted and immersive survival horror game that successfully captures the essence of the genre. Its use of audio cues, challenging combat system, and creepy atmosphere make it a memorable and engaging experience for horror fans. We have currently looked into the world of some of the best and most unique horror experiences that pay homage to classic Resident Evil titles from the PlayStation and Sega Saturn era, but there is much more to discover, as more games and fan-made spin-offs are appearing more often as a result of the resurgence of this unique era of horror games, which is why we need to learn more about these concepts in this next video that dives further into the world of classic horror games to understand the reasons why we are now seeing more of these unique ideas rising from the darkness.